Today we're continuing our series called Here's Your Sign, looking at the 7 signs that Jesus performed in the Gospel of John. And it's not that they were performed on the pages of John, but John, a real-life person who lived 2,000 years ago, followed after Jesus, recorded in a book that he wrote, known as John, what it was that he saw Jesus do. He wrote what it is that he saw Jesus do, and these signs were so convincing that he was willing to leave everything behind and follow Jesus. These signs were so convincing that he knew that there must be something different about this man. He wasn't just an ordinary man. He wasn't just a prophet. He must be God in human flesh that was willing to come and live and die and secure, based on the signs that he did, and the most incredible one, which was resurrection that we're going to celebrate in Easter just a few weeks down the road, right? But these signs proved to him that Jesus was who he said he was and that he was worth being followed. That's what John wrote down. And John, and we've seen this every week, he actually wrote that Jesus did all these signs for the purpose of those who weren't around. So that for those of us like gathered here today and people that have lived since then and will live in the future, that if they want to know, hey, can this Jesus be trusted? He wrote it so that you would believe, so that you could know for sure, so that you could find life in his name. That's why John wrote what he wrote. And so each week of this series, we're just looking at a different sign that Jesus performed, a historical, public, miraculous event, and we're just going through what John said happened and seeing for ourselves, what does this mean? What does this prove about the identity of Jesus? And so for the past 2 weeks, that's what we've done. We saw Jesus turned water into wine. Last week, we saw that he healed an official's son. And then today, we're going to look at the third sign. And it's going to have some similarities to last week's, but it is unique and one that I'm so excited for us to look at and explore together. And the big thing for this sign, just like any sign that we look at, is it is written so that you, no matter what you believe, no matter what you came in here believing, you can look at it and take it for face value and say, okay, maybe, just maybe, I should believe in Jesus for the first time if you haven't, or believe deeper in him if I've been believing for a long time. And so this sign is going to come right after the second sign when it comes chronologically, but it doesn't mean that it happened the very next day. We don't know exactly when this third sign happened. We just know it happened after the second sign. But John is just going to jump in. And so let's just jump in with him. In John chapter 5, this is where we see the third sign that Jesus performed. John chapter 5, starting in verse 1. And here is what we read, all right? Sometime later, I told you we don't know exactly when, but sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now, there is in Jerusalem, John tells us, near the sheep gate, a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Now, let me stop right here. I love to point out when John, a real historical person, gives us real historical facts. Notice, John doesn't start this account of this third sign that Jesus performed with once upon a time or in a galaxy far, far away. No, he doesn't do that because it's not a made-up story. This is a real account of something that happened. And so John is making sure that you know and that I know that this is real and that we can fact-check him. We can fact-check him. And so he's like, hey, you want to know where this sign happened? Let me tell you, it's in Jerusalem near the sheep gate. You know, it's near that pool called Bethesda, which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. So if you want to know where I'm talking about, I'm going to give you the exact location so you can go check. And did you know, I want you to know this. This is really cool. Archaeologists, like Indiana Jones, okay, have gone. And they have excavated the area that John was talking about. And they have discovered that, in fact, in Jerusalem, in a place called Bethesda, where 5 covered colonnades used to be, there is a pool. Which just, again, goes to prove that this is not a made-up story. These are historical events that John is telling us about. All right. Verse 3. Here at the pool, John is telling us, a great number of disabled people used to lie. The blind, the lame, and the paralyzed. Here at this pool, known as Bethesda, with 5 covered colonnades, it was popular at the time, 2,000 years ago, for people to come to this pool and lie around it. Notice it doesn't say in it, around it. And they lied around it, those who were disabled, those who had some sort of physical issue that they wanted healing for. Why did they do this? Because at this time, there was a belief that there was healing power in the pool. All right? There was this belief that there was healing power in the pool. And what they believed was that there was an angel that you could not see, but that whenever it happened, that an angel would come down and it would cause the water to stir or bubble up, and that the first person that got in the pool after the bubbling had happened, after the stirring of the water had happened, that person would be healed. That was the belief of the time. And so you can imagine the scene here at this historical site, this pool, all of these people, the blind, the lame, and the paralyzed, as John tells us, are just laying around this pool and they're just looking, they're just staring. When is it going to bubble up? When is it going to be stirred? When is the angel going to touch it? Because whenever it happens, I need to be the first one in the pool, because if I'm the first one in the pool, then I can be healed. That was the belief at the time. And so that's why people would circle around it. Now, what we know now, because again, archaeologists have excavated the area, is that it's not just a pool of water and an angel coming down. It's a natural spring that creates this pool of water, and intermittently, not regularly, but occasionally, it will bubble up as the spring puts forth more water. And so, of course, you can see how superstition would come to be. Well, it doesn't happen all the time. I mean, it must be an angel that is stirring the water. And here's the other thing I know, and here's the other thing you probably know. It is popular belief even today that there are certain natural hot springs around the world that have healing properties, healing powers, that somebody could go in them and come out feeling better, right? There's a lot of psychological things going on that we trick our mind into thinking that something is happening to make us feel better. But this was the belief at the time, okay? That, man, if I just get in this pool when the angel touches it, that clearly I will be healed. That's what the common belief was. That's why all of these people laid around it, and they were waiting for it to be stirred so that they could be healed. That's the context, that's the scene that Jesus comes upon here in Jerusalem. All right? Look at the next verse. Look at verse 5. One who was there, one of the people that was there at the pool, had been an invalid for 38 years. John tells us there's someone who's been there, has not been able to walk, completely dependent upon others for 38 years. And Jesus and his disciples come to this place, and Jesus sees this man. Verse 6, when Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to get well?" Do you want to get well? Now, just like last week, if you were here last week, and if you haven't, you can go online and watch last week's sermon. This seems like another insensitive question that Jesus would ask. It really does. It seems like another question that if Jesus were here today and asked this type of question in the wrong audience, he would get canceled, right? It just doesn't seem like a question that you would ask a man who you know has been like this for 38 years, and you say, "Do you want to get well?" And you would think, well, what? Like, Jesus, come on, why would you ask him that? I mean, you can see the disciples are probably just rolling their eyes like, Jesus, come on. Why would you ask him that? I mean, if you haven't been able to move or walk for 38 years, I mean, surely, of course, everyone's going to want to get better, get well, right? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Jesus asked him the question because he genuinely wanted to know, do you want to get well? If you've been struggling with something for many, many years, you may, I don't know, not want to get better. There are people. Maybe you're here today and you could identify with this. Maybe you're here today and you can identify a time in your life when you felt this. There are people who go through things and they do not want to get better. They would rather stay unwell even if there was a way to get well, because being unwell has just become their identity. It would be harder for them mentally to actually fathom how they could be better than to just stay in their state of unwellness. There are those that have become so accustomed to receiving and being dependent on others, they just can't fathom how they could actually get better. Some people, if they were asked by Jesus in this situation, do you want to get well? They might say, I've tried it. I've tried to get better. I'd love to get better, but I've kind of exhausted all that I can do. Some people have just lost all belief that they could get better, and others have just become so comfortable in their situation that they don't see a need to change. They don't even think that they need to get better because it's just become part of who they are. And we all face the risk of this being our story. We all have things that we go through. We all have things that become normal for us, that Jesus would look at us if he was face to face with us and say, hey, the same way that if you never saw a mirror for a year, okay, you would want someone to maybe show you a mirror, but it would take somebody showing you a mirror to realize you need to do something about that. In the same way, I think he looks at us and he looks at me and he looks at you and he's like, there's this area of your life. Do you want to get well? And if you've become so comfortable, if you've become so at ease with, if you've normalized where you are, you may not see that you need to get well until you are just shook or hit bottom, or you just come to the place of realizing, oh my goodness, I do need to get well. It could be something physical, it could be something psychological, spiritual, financial, relational. The question that Jesus is asking is not really a crazy one. It's a question that he really does ask even today, of people. Do you want to get well? What will the man say? Back to this account. Look at verse 7. Do you want to get well? Jesus said, sir, the invalid replied, look at this, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I am trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me. Translation, yes, I want to get well. Why else would I be here? That's what he's saying. He's not someone who is stuck, who doesn't want to get well. He does want to get well. He doesn't say he wants to get well. What does he say? He said, I have no one to help me get in the pool. Why would he want to get in the pool other than to get better? By him saying, I have no one to help me get in the pool when the waters are stirred, he's saying, yes, I want to get better, but Jesus, I don't know if you're new here, but the healing that I need is in the pool. And so, yes, I want to get well. That's why I'm laying here. But I need somebody. Are you here to help me get in the pool? Because that's what I need. I need somebody to help me get in the pool because I can't get there quick enough because there's other people with issues and they're getting in before me, but I can't move quick enough, so I need someone to help me get in the pool. Yes, I want to get better, but I need someone to help me make it into the pool of healing. Well, Jesus has heard all he needs to hear. He just wanted to know if the man wanted healing. And he finds out that he wants healing. And so Jesus is ready to do the third sign that John records. But Jesus is not going to help the man get into the pool. Look at what Jesus says. Verse 8. After the man answers, then Jesus said to him, "Get up, pick up your mat, and walk." To which, if you're there, and John doesn't tell us, but if you're there, you can just picture the man like incredulously looking at Jesus like, "No, I don't think you understood. I need to get in the pool. You're telling me to get up and walk. I can't. I've not been able to do that for 38 years. I told you I need to get in the pool, and you're telling me get up and walk? I can't do that. That's why I am here, because this water has healing powers." To which Jesus, if he would have uttered that, would have looked at the man and said, "You don't need superstitious water to heal you." Jesus would have said, "I don't need superstitious water to bring about your healing." Jesus has power to heal in the words of his lips. He doesn't need anything physical. Jesus is like, just get up and walk. You're healed. In verse 9, look at what we see. That at once, not after he went in the water, at once the man was cured. He picked up his mat and walked. I mean, can you imagine for 38 years you've not been able to walk? But now you have been able to walk. You've been healed. This would cause quite a stir in any community, but especially in Jerusalem when this took place right beside this superstitious pool where people thought you had to get in the water for this healing to take place, but it's actually happened outside of the water. Jesus didn't need to use the water, and he has been healed. And if you keep reading in this account, which we're not going to today, but this actually happened on the Sabbath, which is a whole nother angle of this account to explore another time. But the religious leaders didn't have a category and didn't like that Jesus healed on the Sabbath. And they were having issue with that. And this man, he gets healed. He doesn't even know Jesus' name, and he bumps into Jesus, and he tells the others that that Jesus is the one that's actually healed. I mean, it's unbelievable when you really look at it. But this was another sign that revealed Jesus' identity. And this is a huge sign for us today to say and realize who Jesus is. He could heal people independently of superstition and what everyone else thought was needed to find healing at the time. And imagine with me, just imagine. This man hasn't walked in 38 years. I don't know if you've ever broken a bone before. I don't know if you've ever broken your ankle. I have. I don't know if you've ever been bedridden for a long period of time. But it doesn't take long of immobility of a limb for the muscle to completely atrophy. I mean, it doesn't take more than a week. It doesn't take more than a couple months to where if you want to walk again after being immobile, being bedridden, breaking a leg, that you've got to go through physical therapy. I mean, you do. You've got to regain strength. You've got to learn how to walk again. You've got to build the muscle. This man hasn't stood or walked in 38 years. His muscles haven't atrophied. There is no muscle. The ligaments are And in an instant, this man goes from not being able to walk to not just being able to walk, but 38 years of immobility completely reversed in an instant. In an instant, muscles developed. In an instant, ligaments developed, regenerated. In an instant. That's what Jesus did for this man. And if you're wondering if there's any proof for why you should follow Jesus, here's your sign number 3. Jesus came to this man and simply asked him, do you want to be healed? Do you want to be healed? He didn't do surgery. He didn't do physical therapy. He didn't use the pool that everyone else thought had to be used if you wanted to be healed. He simply spoke healing into this man. But in addition to us seeing that this is, again, proof or evidence for why we should believe. Why did John write this? Why did he record this? So that people who weren't there would know that Jesus is the Messiah and that by believing you could have life in his name. That's why John wrote it. And so that is the main reason. But there's something else I want us to see that's so clear in this passage. And it's found in how you read it, because if you're not careful and if you read it fast, you'll misread what John wrote. If you're not careful and you read it fast, what you will read is Jesus healed this man after he took a step. If you're not careful, because I've done this, you'll read this account and you'll see that Jesus said, oh, I don't want to use water, I'm not going to use water, but I'm going to heal you. And this man got up and took a step, and then Jesus healed him. But that's not actually what John tells us. John tells us that he healed this man prior to him standing up. Now, you may not think that that matters, or that that's that big of a deal, or that it would change much if he stood up and then he was healed. I mean, I understand. Maybe you're wrestling with that, and you're like, I don't see it, Matt. But follow with me. He was healed before there was any evidence that he was healed. He was healed while sitting down, while laying down. So technically, come on, he could have decided, you know what, this Jesus guy's crazy. He could have been healed and still been laying there at that pool for years to come. He could have been healed and not believed that he was healed, because you didn't put me in the water, Jesus, and I've got to use the water. I need the pool to find my healing, and so I can't be healed. So he could have been healed and just laid there for who knows how much longer. I don't think y'all are tracking with me. Here's what I wonder. How many of us this morning is Jesus looking at and saying, do you want to get well? And we don't really believe that he can make us well, even though he gives the prescription in his word to make us better, and we just keep living as if we need the pool. We choose not to stand up and walk. Even though healing is available, we decide that we need to just trust in pools more than we need to trust in Christ himself. Now, this morning, if you're here and you have a physical ailment that you're saying, yes, I want to get well, trusting in Jesus does not mean that you don't utilize modern medicine. That's not what I'm saying at all. You should. But it means that your trust for healing, if it comes through medicine, is not medicine. It's God himself using the medicine to heal you. You see that? That's the difference. But if Jesus were to ask you this morning, do you want to get well? And there was an area of your life that you knew what he was identifying and what he was talking about, and you desired it. Maybe it was something in your marriage or your dating relationship. Maybe it was an addiction, a habit, something with finances or a job. And if he asked you, do you want to get well? And instead of trusting completely in him to make you well, you look to pools to trust in, then you're missing out on what he wants to do in your life. And we all have pools. We all have pools that we look to. We all have pools that we're tempted by. If you're unsatisfied in a romantic relationship, I'm going to look to the pool of an affair to trust in. If I'm bored or frustrated with my spouse, I'm going to turn to the pool of pornography to trust in and deliver me. Right? If I'm discouraged at work or overwhelmed in life, I'm going to turn to the pool of alcohol or drugs to feel that hurt that I'm struggling with. If I'm stressed and worried and just, I don't know about this and with my job and how I'm gonna provide for my family, I'm gonna look to the pool of other ways to earn income that may actually be illegal or may actually compromise my faith, but hey, I need something to fix it, so I'm gonna trust in those pools instead of Christ. If I need another person and I'm single and it's like I want to be married or I want to find somebody, it's like I'm gonna look to the pool of another person to fulfill me instead of looking to Christ. If I look around and I don't like what's going on in the world, instead of looking to Christ, I'm gonna look in the pool of politics to trust in instead of, no, look to Christ. If I have a hole inside of me that just needs to be filled, I'm gonna look in all the wrong places. And really what happens when you look to things to fulfill you, when you trust in things other than Christ, you and I are trusting in pools of water. And in the same way that Christ didn't need pools of water to heal this man, he doesn't need a pool, however you define it, to heal whatever is broken within you. If at the end of the day, when you get stressed, when you get to the end of yourself, if you're turning to anything other than Jesus, then you're turning to a pool. And if you're turning to something other than Jesus, then you're not fully trusting Jesus. What's happening, honestly, is you're not trusting that Jesus is big enough to handle whatever it is that you're going through. And I just want you to know something this morning. He is big enough. In fact, he's bigger than you could ever imagine to handle what you're going through, and he's proved it by this sign. And let me just say, he is worthy of being fully trusted in regardless of what happens in your immediate situation. Amen. If you're going through something this morning, and you need him to come through for you. You're like, do I want to get well? Yes, I want to get well. And you give it to him. I'm not promising you this morning that he's going to fully take care of it on this side of heaven, because I can't guarantee that. But I can promise you that you should give it to him, and if you give it to him, you will experience healing that you wouldn't experience otherwise. You will experience a spiritual healing that you need more than the physical, temporal, worldly thing. And by worldly, I don't mean it's bad, but I mean it's just something that one day, if you've trusted in Christ, the need that you have will be fully taken care of on the other side of eternity. And so when you come to him, when you bring him that thing that you have, that you need healing in, he could take it away. He could completely make you better, independent of anything else in this world at the power of his name. But it's not about the thing, it's about your heart. Amen. He wants your heart. What you and I need more than what we think we need is not to have our issues completely taken care of. What we need more than our issue to be fixed is for our heart to be at peace in his hands. The peace and comfort that you receive from fully and completely trusting in Jesus when you ask the question, do I want to get well, is worth more than anything else. It doesn't mean he can't take away what you're going through. He can, and he may. But it's about your heart. So this morning, what I want to invite all of us to do is just to fully trust in Jesus. He proved that he can be fully trusted based upon this account, this third sign. And when you fully trust in him, that means you no longer have to bargain with him. You know what I mean by bargaining? It means you no longer have to negotiate with him. You no longer have to compromise with him. You no longer have to say, okay, I've seen what you've done in this sign, so I'm just gonna fully trust you. I don't know if you're gonna take away what I need you to take away, but I know that you're worthy of being trusted, so I'm just gonna give you my heart. I'm gonna give you my all. I'm gonna give you my issue. If you say, do I wanna get well, and I'm just gonna give it to you because you can handle it, I'm just gonna give it to you and trust that whatever you decide and however you choose to handle it, that's good. But so often what we do is we get to the point of, yes, I believe, Jesus, that you can do that. Let me give you Sunday. Then Monday through Saturday, I'm going to play in the pool. You know, let me give you this timeline. I'll trust you for the next month. But if you don't come through, I'm going back to the pool because at least I get my issue numbed. At least I get temporary pleasure. At least I get temporary relief from what it is that I'm going through. And I'm just telling you, what Jesus is inviting you to is full trust in him. Not negotiating the terms, not bargaining with him the terms, but all out, full out trust in him. I'm not promising that everything's gonna go perfect afterwards, and I'm not promising that you're not gonna have questions. It's not about not doubting or not having any more questions by trusting him fully. You will still have questions. You will still have doubt. But if trust is here and the pool is here, it's saying I'm standing here because I trust in Jesus. And even though I doubt, even though I question, even though people are calling me to come over to the pool, I'm not going to the pool because I've seen who Jesus is, I've seen the sign, and I am gonna hold on to him, right? So this morning, I just want to invite you to trust fully in Jesus. Everything other than Jesus that we trust in is simply a superstitious pool. Trust fully in Jesus. In just a minute, we're going to sing a song. And during this next song, if you need someone to pray for you, if you need someone to help you cement the trust that you want to have in Jesus this morning, then I just want you to come forward. All right, we do this every week. We have leaders that stand across here at the front that are ready to receive you. But this morning, what I want to challenge you with as we sing this song is if the reason that you're being held back is because you don't think God's big enough to handle it, surrender that thought and just trust him this morning. If you've been bargaining and negotiating and compromising and trying to follow Jesus on your terms, this morning, I'm not asking you to suspend disbelief. I'm not asking you to say, well, I still have questions, and so is that not allowed? No, I'm saying it is allowed. If you've got questions, if you've got doubts, that's okay. But I'm just inviting you to say, I'm going to fully trust in Jesus. I'm not gonna negotiate because he's bigger. He's bigger, he's big enough to handle it. And so might we just step into fully trusting Jesus this morning? Let's not look to pools and let's not lay down when healing is available to us. Father, this morning I just pray for everyone in this room and everyone watching online. Father, thank you that you can be trusted. God, I know there's still a lot of people that have a lot of questions and have a lot of doubts, and that's okay. You're big enough for that. So God, during this next song, might we just take another step towards you? And might those who are ready to go all in and trust you do that? Because you've shown us that you're trustworthy. You've shown us that you're inviting us to trust you. So God, keep us from those pools that overpromise and underdeliver every time, and lead us to you. Lead us to you. Help us trust you, Jesus. In Jesus' name, amen.